What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hardcore Fab Shop. On today's video, I'm going to be talking about doing some tubing rolling, and I'm going to show you the turd right there that I used to do it with. So I get a lot of people that ask me questions about rolled tubing when they see a lot of the cage work stuff that I've done, and the first thing that pops up is, how did you get that line in there? And a lot of people aren't aware of tubing rollers. So a tubing roller will actually give this nice big arc here into your tube work. So that's what I use to be able to get that in there. We'll go more into depth in that in a second, but I've got a pretty crazy bar here that we're going to get to do next. So the next bar is going to have a spot here. We're going to connect with this node right here, this other bar that's coming into play here. So we're going to come off of that. We're going to actually come up a little bit so we can get some more headroom over our driver. Then at that point, we're going to put a bend, and then at the bend, we're going to have a nice gradual arc like this with our tubing roller. And then it's going to come down here to where our windshield point is. And at that point, we're going to put another bend in it, probably clock that a little bit, so we also have not only a roll this way, but also a roll this way. Makes it a little bit cooler. Makes it harder to do, but it's cooler. So once we get to that point, like I said, we'll put a bend in there, and we'll drop straight down to this firewall point right here. And that'll create another node here that'll make this a really strong corner down here in this area too. So like I said, thought this would be a cool one to show you guys because it's a little bit more complex than just, an actual just roll. So let's go ahead and talk about this turd now a little bit more. So I call it a turd because it really truly is a turd. It is the Harbor Freight tubing roller. Not sponsored by Harbor Freight or anything like that. I have made some other videos on some other stuff. My grinders, I don't know if you guys can see them over there, are Harbor Freight grinders. I'm pretty happy with those and some of the other stuff that I've got from there, but this thing here I've had for years and it never really even worked to begin with right off the bat. So what I had to do is actually modify it a little bit to where I could make it work. So the parts that came with this thing from Harbor Freight is this wheel here and this main body, of course, and then also the rollers that are inside the main body and out here on the edges. Those all came with it, and the way it worked originally is these rollers were actually pinned through that hole and through this hole over here. And it's a pretty simple deal because all you've got here on the top is a screw that'll actually thread in, and as it threads in, it pushes down this top wheel. The top wheel then pushes and gives a little bit of a bow into the metal between these two rollers here. And then as you feed it in and, push it right on through, then it's going to give that bow to the metal. So the theory is pretty simple and pretty basic, but it just doesn't work, especially when you're talking about big heavy tubing like all this DOM. All right, so to make this thing work, all I did was just take and find some scrap metal that I had just hanging around here in the shop, literally because it was hanging from my ceiling. And I pulled it down as some 3-inch channel iron, and I just welded it right to the bottom of the body of the main piece of the roller here. So what that did is that allowed me to take the dies out of here where they were pinned originally and move them clear out here. And that spaces them to where we're about a foot now from the center die, the center of it, to the center of these outside ones. And the other one on the other side is obviously the same position as this one. So now that just allows us to put more pressure and more leverage, basically, if you will, on our tubing, and it will actually roll it now at this point. The only downside to this is that by moving these out from here where they was originally, we're now losing about 6 more inches of tube every time that we roll a bar that will not get an arc in it, that if you're not planning accordingly is then going to be wasted material. Luckily, most of the time we have a place to put some little drops, somewhere along the lines, like there's some little filler pieces in there, and we got these side filler pieces here and stuff like that. So there's places where it usually ends up going, so it's not complete total waste, but it is something that you guys got to think about while you're kind of planning and doing all this stuff. All right, Connor, so walk us through the process of using this turd.
Well, you first of all get your tubing in there, and then what you do is you take your impact and you run it down to where it's snug, and then after it's snug, you want to do it about a quarter of a turn. And then you're going to turn it and go to the other end, then you're going to turn it another quarter of an inch, and then you keep repeating that process until it's got the bend you want in there.
Okay, cool. Well, go ahead and do it for us and show us what it's like.
Yeah, so here, if you're wanting to have a straight piece, of course you just stopped it. Yeah.
So we want a straight piece from, where's your mark at?
Right here.
Right there. So from there to there is going to be our windshield on our RZR, so we don't want that part to be rolled. So that's where you're stopping, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. And put a little WD-40 on there, right there on the threads, helps it thread in there, go a little easier.
Help our quality Harbor Freight threads there.
Yep. Do that. Battery's going out. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll grab another battery and start again. So this is obviously not the fastest process, but what have you in, like a couple of 2 or 3 turns now?
Yeah, something like that.
2 or 3 turns, and you guys can see that it's already got a pretty good little arc starting to go in there with it. So go ahead, continue on. Pretty good arm workout, huh?
Very good arm workout.
All right, so this is gonna be a minute. I'll go ahead and put you guys on time lapse so you can see this go a little bit quicker. Alright, so some of you might have been wondering why we were rolling such a long tube just to go from here to there. It's so that we would actually have a mirrored copy of what we needed when we cut it in half. And that's got a couple of advantages to it. So the first one being obviously that both bars are now perfect identical matches to each other. And we also don't have any wasted tube at the end of our rolls. The way we accomplish that is, since we cut it in half, there didn't need to be any extra out here. If we'd have rolled this in 2 separate pieces, we would have had to have an extra foot out here to be able to get the roll here and still be able to go back and forth in our roller. And on the other end of it, since we're going to have a piece that's straight coming off of here for our A-pillar, we don't want to roll on that anyways, so we've got more than the foot that we needed in there extra, so now we don't have any wasted material in this particular bar. Also, we rolled that to the exact same mark that we've been rolling some of the rest of this tubing on here, and that gives it that exact same arc right there as what we have here on the bottom. So when we do the mirror image of that on the top side, it should have a pretty nice look to it. So I guess now we're at the point now we're ready to go ahead and throw some bends in this thing and start fitting it into place. Well, guys, there you go. Got it all set in place and tacked in, and I think it looks pretty good. Like I said, I love the combination of the bends and the rolls and everything in there. I think it adds a lot to the look of things, and I'm pretty happy with the way that's turned out. So, yeah, we're going to be moving forward now, get some of the rest of these bars in here and everything. If you guys want to see how this thing turns out, I'll put you guys a link to the playlist up here above to this right here, which is our RZR Regerts Buggy build. So go over, check it out if you're interested in that sort of thing. And check out those other 2 video links that I left you in there as well if you haven't seen those yet on the other tools that I use to be able to make this one particular bar. And I guess with that, that's about all I got for you guys on today's video, so I'll see you guys on the next one.